As professionals, we have many opportunities to buy fish in many different locations. On this slide, you see a few different listed. Central Fish Market is a wholesale market, generally open, at least in New York and Boston, from 1 in the morning to 5 a.m. This gives plenty of opportunity for the fish to be bought, sold, and transported while the rest of us are getting some rest. If you'd like to go, knock yourself out, but realize you can only work so many shifts in a row without getting much sleep. Central markets have the largest selection, the cheapest prices, and generally what's thought of as the freshest fish. At CIA in Hyde Park, we generally buy from the Boston Central Market, and we can once in a while get from New York City. Seafood purveyors will sell you whatever they have at the market, and they go pick it up for you. It's going to be more expensive, but just remember, it's like going to a restaurant. You don't ask the chef why you're paying more when the raw ingredients only cost so many dollars. You have to pay for their labor, their time, their business profit, their utilities, etc. You can have seafood purveyors that'll get you anything from just lobsters all the way to anything in the sea. Food service distributors, slightly larger scale, they cover everything from dry goods to canned goods to produce to meat to fish. Sysco jumps to mind. They're one of the largest ones in the United States of America. You may say you don't want to buy from Sysco. Well, that's fine too. But chances are you're going to have a food service distributor come to your restaurant. And if you're buying frozen shrimp, honestly, what's the difference? You can air freight anything you want in from around the world. There's farms and importers that'll carry everything that we don't have on our own domestic soil. And lastly, if you're going to buy from fishermen, make sure they're commercially licensed, because only they know the rules of what's in season, what gear is correct, if the fish came from clean waters, etc. In this slide, you can see our local market, the New Fulton Fish Market in Hunts Point, Bronx, New York. This market in itself is open from 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. And the picture on the right-hand side, you can see that's about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the bottom picture, a fishmonger cutting fish to order. It's quite a lively place. It used to be closed to the public, but now you can go. I recommend going at least once in your life. Here we have Tsukiji Market in Tokyo. This is the world's largest market. They have over 400 species of fish, a couple of hundred which are available alive. In the top left, you'll see the tuna auction room. This market operates in the same nighttime, early morning hours that our market in New York does. All of those fish will be sold in that top left picture, and by 6 a.m. that floor will be power washed and spotless clean. The bottom right shows that the buildings that all encompass the market, they all sell fish. There's been a little bit of an outcry because they've recently started to move the market across the river, and the Japanese folk are now upset because they feel like they lost the soul of the market. They sell 1 billion pounds of fish a year at that market. If you're wondering why the Intrepid, which is a small aircraft carrier in New York City, is in this picture, it's because 1 billion pounds equals 38.7 of those aircraft carriers in weight. Picture that in the volume of fish. When we go to a market or we call up our purveyor, we need to speak the same language they do. That's called market forms. Certain animals, we have primals, subprimals, portion cuts. Fish is no different. If we look through this list, we have in the round. I want you to think about that as just as a fish comes out of the water, except it's dead. The guts are in it, the scales, the tail, the head, the bones, everything's there. That's going to require a little bit of work, but it will look the cheapest on the per pound on the purchasing form. A little bit more money is drawn. That's where they take out the viscera or the guts. It's going to be a little cheaper or a little more expensive per pound because you're not paying for the gut weight. If they take that drawn fish and remove the scales and the fins, we now call that dressed. Or alternately, if it's small enough, like a flounder, a sole, little Boston mackerel, it could be pan dressed. Further down the line, we go with fillet or fillet. That would be a boneless side of skin or fish, and the skin is optional. I would always recommend buying its skin on for a number of reasons. 1, it'll help you identify the fish. 2, it'll help hold in some moisture. 3, it'll help hold the fillet together during transport. And 3, you might like to cook the skin either on the fillet or off of it as a garnish. It's better to have multiple options than just one. Lastly, the most expensive per pound is portion cut. But the advantage of buying portion cuts is it's 100% yield. So it may look twice the price of in the round, but if you're not going to use bones for stock and you're not going to use any of the offal inside for any other interesting dishes, cost it out. You may be better off buying portion cuts. All right, so now we've decided what market form we're going to buy the fish in. Let's say that we decided on in the round because we're all going to culinary school and we all can't wait to break down the fish for tonight's dinner. That fish is going to come in the back door or your loading dock. First thing you need to check is for the proper temperature. I'm going to recommend 28 to 32 degrees. Kind of hard to get to unless it's packed in a lot of ice. So flaked ice, salt ice, crushed ice, 28 degrees, because for every 2 degrees above 32 degrees, for 24 hours, you're going to lose 4 days of shelf life. So if your walk-in is 40 degrees and you need to be at 32, that's an 8-degree difference. Divide that by 2, and that's a 4-day loss on every day in the cooler. So lots of ice. General appearance, the fish should look good. You all know what something should look like or have a rough idea. If it looks like it was beaten up and it's torn up and bloody and bruised, I would turn it back. There are some fish that get damaged in some types of fishing methods, but generally, it should look like something you would want to put in a display case. Scales, for the most part, should be tight to the body. There are some exceptions. We have a fish called a hake where they fall off in your hand. We have the monkfish without scales. The flesh, just like a good kneaded dough ball of pasta or pizza dough, when you lightly depress it, should spring right back at you. Don't jab at it because you will damage the myotomes, but lightly press it and it should spring back. The eyes should be clear, bulging out of the body, and you should be able to look right into them. There are some exceptions as well. The cod family are sunken into their head, and then you have fish like walleyes where they have cloudy eyes. The gills, when you lift up the gill plate, it should look like red meat. Nice dark red burgundy, should smell really good. The overall smell, put your nose in the stomach cavity. Does it smell like when you're driving to the beach? Absence of belly burn. Make sure there's no yellow or green staining. That would indicate that the bile sac got burst and then that kind of cooked by the acid, which you'd have to carve out and you'd lose some yield. When we buy fish, doesn't matter what the market form is, we also have to decide if we want fresh or frozen. I can't tell you which one is better, but there are certain applications where frozen may be better. In the example of sashimi or sushi in New York, it has to be frozen to kill parasites. Fish never gets fresher and it starts to degrade the second it comes out of the water. It's just like picking a squash or a zucchini. It'll never get better from that moment on. So use it as best you can. If it was frozen right on board at sea, like in the bottom bullet point, frozen at sea, you know you're going to be assured of a great product. You're actually looking at a series of photos of guys on a fishing vessel that are cutting the fish on a conveyor belt with light tables. It's going down to the guy in the bottom right who's putting it into trays. And you may be able to see the dividers in there. That's tray pack. Rather than individual fillets or individual fish, it's a bunch of flounder fillets all stacked up on top of each other, referred to as shatter pack sometimes. And they'll blast chill it out at the boat, box it up, label the box as FAS, and sell it. FAS can be both of those, and if you buy individually quick frozen, it's going to be slightly more money than tray pack, but the advantage is you don't have to defrost the whole package, so in the end you may save money on spoilage. Here we see two freezing methods. They're both very good. Trust me when I tell you they're much better than your freezer in your house. Blast freezing is quite common and it's 25 to 40 degrees below zero. Very good end result, but the best would be a liquid nitrogen assisted cryogenic freezer. There are very few people who can tell the difference between cryogenically frozen fish and fish right out of the water. When we get back on campus, we're going to be doing fabrication of fish. I have some videos in the last module for you to take a look at, but just keep in mind, you'll hear me mention this over and over throughout the upcoming modules. Flat fish will be cut in the flat cut technique, and if you do flat cut technique, you will get 4 fillets total, 2 off of each side, 2 off the pigmented side, 2 off the bottom. We call those quarter fillets. If you do up and over on a flat fish, you take off the whole side, and we call that a full fillet, and you have 1 from each side. Small ones like Dover sole can be pan dressed, and larger fish like halibut and turbot can be cut into steaks, just like we saw on that slide way back in the beginning of these lectures. With our round fish, we're going to talk about 2 cutting methods only. An up and over cut for a hard bone fish, which is very similar to deboning a chicken, coming around the breastbone, because you can't cut through the bones easily on cod and bass. Or if you have really soft bones like a salmon, trout, or Spanish mackerel, we'll cut straight through the bones. Think of this. Soft stick of butter, you cut straight through it. Hard mountain, you got to go up and over it. So if that helps you remember which cut, there you have it.